Welcome to Explore Women's Health with NG Bio, the podcast where science, capital, and conviction come together to build the future of women's health. I'm Dr. Deniz Bakkalcı, a scientist and investor leading women's health at NG Bio. Explore brings you inside the bold ideas, sharp strategies reshaping this space, straight from the people making it happen. Today we're diving into a condition that affects 1 in 10 women, yet on average it takes 10 years to diagnose: endometriosis. Joining me today, Cinzia Donato, Chief Operating Officer of Hera Biotech, a company on a mission to radically change how we detect and treat women's health diseases. Hera isn't just building a non-surgical tissue-based diagnostic. They're opening a clinical front door for a condition that's long been dismissed. And what's impressed me most is their clarity. This isn't just science, it is infrastructure for a new era of women's health. Cinzia, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Nice to be in London again.
Yeah, when was the last time you were here?
I think it was October for the SIS conference.
Right, nice.
Very nice conference.
And
I had a very lovely time here.
I'm really glad to see you again. It seems like we've been together for different women's health events over the last month. I hope many to come.
Yes.
Should we jump in straight to the questions?
Sure.
Let's start at the very beginning. What was the moment, personal, clinical, or commercial, when you realized that building a better diagnostic for endometriosis wasn't optional and it had to happen? And obviously, to answer this question, I think for our audience, it'll be lovely if you can give a background for, who is Cinzia and what did you do before Hera?
Sure. Yes. So I am a scientist by training. I have a PhD in molecular oncology from the University of Basel in Switzerland, where I actually live. Before that, I moved a bit around Europe for my education, still in science. So biotech, cancer specialization, and then PhD in molecular oncology. I basically started working in women's health already 10 years ago because I was studying breast cancer and how breast cancer was affecting women, how it was growing, how it was metastasizing, and trying to stop it at the root cause. So after my PhD, I decided to stop working in academia and to join the professional world. And I joined my first startup that's called Skylight. It's also based in Basel. And there we were working with complex data sets. We were performing single cell analysis and using artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, so AI-based technologies to identify biomarkers for for diagnostics purposes or prognostic purposes. And that's how I actually came to know endometriosis. That was 2020, right after Corona. I joined that company, and that's when I learned about endo. I did not know about the existence before. Very weird for me to say that because now I work with it. Now I'm surrounded by patients. And until 5 years ago, I knew nobody that had the disease and nobody that was working on the disease. So it never even came up as a research topic ever in any conference that I went to. Yeah, now it's been 5 years that I work with this disease. It's 5 years that I learn how people suffer from this disease and how much this disease is then understudied and underfunded and overlooked. I think the first time that I realized that this was not just a project for me was really when somebody said, well, this is not the highest of your priorities to focus on this project. I obviously had several other projects to work on. I think, the first time that I realized, no, this cannot stay like this was exactly then when somebody said, oh, this is not such a priority. I'm like, cannot be. There is really a need for research done in this area, and we were working on a diagnostic product, and I felt it was extremely important to continue working on it. End of 2023, we decided that the project reached a certain maturity level that was not, it could not continue staying within the company. And I got in touch with the CEO of Hera Biotech. At that time, we were competitors. We were working with Summer. Yeah, exactly. At that time, we were straight competitors. We were working on the same disease. We were working with the same tissue type. We were working with similar technologies, similar discoveries, and we liked each other. So there was some vibing going on there. And we thought, instead of competing, why don't we actually join forces? And we try to bring something that it's more powerful in the market. So this was, beginning of 2024. Since then, I joined Hera Biotech, and it's been my main focus to create a much better product, bringing together the two technologies, the one that I developed previously and the one that was already existing at Hera.
It truly shocks me how, when you said that you haven't come across with endometriosis in any conferences before. Can you believe this? Like, same number of patients as diabetes, yet we don't see anything about it. It is very heartbreaking. One of many reasons I'm leading Women's Health at NG Bio is purely because of this as well. It is really shocking, and it's coming from a personal, conviction for me as well. I do have PCOS. That's obviously not the main reason I'm doing it, but people need to be more aware of it. There should be more investment going into women's health. So I can resonate with your story. And coming to your founder sort of matchmaking, it is a beautiful story, and actually it's an amazing example, because you might see some people saying there's a big pool of diagnostic companies right now accumulating around women's health, including endometriosis, PCOS, and yet two powerful women joining forces together. I think it's a very strong story for a lot of investors, in my opinion. So
yeah, we thought so too. We thought that consolidation was more needed than fragmentation. So instead of putting another competitor out there that would confuse even more the investors and in the field in general, we thought, why not instead working together? And the skill sets and the experiences that Summer and I bring are complementary. She worked in VCs for 10 years prior to Hera Biotech before becoming an entrepreneur. And I have the scientific side on my side. We joined together quite seamlessly.
It is also amazing that she's located in US.
Correct.
Whereas you're in Switzerland, and bringing, different geographical data sets together makes it even stronger, in my opinion.
That's a very good point. Hera developed our assay in San Antonio and surrounding areas. So the patients were coming from that background, while for me it was Switzerland. So I'm bringing the European counterpart in the same data set.
Brilliant. Coming back to a bit of investor relationships, you're building in a space most investors historically overlooked. What gave you the confidence to push forward? And because maybe even before the market was ready, you've done this. So I'm really curious. It requires a lot of confidence, and I admire.
I would say stubbornness more than confidence, but thanks. What gives me the confidence is still a sentence in the present tense, I must say. We're not quite there yet. The field is still not ready. The market is definitely not ready. And the clinical field is still struggling to see how technologies that are brought to the market for endometriosis diagnosis could actually change the patient journey. Some of the feedback that we get from some physicians, for instance, or also some VCs, it could be, there is no therapeutics still, so we do not need a diagnostics. I kind of refuse the type of logic, because it's we're so much talking about personalized medicine, and yet we don't want to subtype this disease. Yeah. We know that it's a super heterogeneous. We know it because there is no patient that looks, acts, or feels the same or has the same patient journey as another one. So how could we not want to subtype all these patients, figure out what's going on with their genomic workup, if we want to go into that level of detail, and then figure out what kind of therapeutics that can be given to specific subgroups. We have done it for cancer. We continuously do that for cancer. We are doing it for other diseases as well. Endometriosis is as prevalent as diabetes, and it can kill you. As well. Yeah. Normally women go crazy before they get killed by endometriosis, so somebody at some point will hear them. But still, it's a logic that for me doesn't make any sense. From an investor perspective, I understand that there is also some advantages in investing in a disease that also has a therapeutic. We will get there. It's a matter of time. We did not figure out how cancer works within a year or 5. Yeah. And now the endometriosis, let's call it a hype. This is a women's health movement that some people get really buzzed or even annoyed by hearing that women's health, endometriosis, PCOS and all these things. It's only 5 years old.
I think a lot of people need to understand that we're not only doing this for raising awareness. Those things should be done separately. and full respect on patient advocate groups. They're doing amazing in charities. But we are actually coming from, you or us investors coming from a different angle, that there is a real opportunity here. And people need to understand how heterogeneous these diseases are, as you said. So, everything you said, I was thinking in my head that for we talk about personalized medicine, yet we don't know how to diagnose probably majority of women's health diseases. And these diseases are very linked to each other. So like one patient can have multiple, not because yet I haven't been diagnosed with anything doesn't mean that I don't have it, because there's no proper diagnostic for it.
Correct. We have done a great deal of work with a pharmacoeconomist that works specifically in women's health, and it has a true passion for endometriosis. His name is Mark Gannott. He and his team has been working a lot into figure out through meta-analysis how many diseases are correlated with endometriosis. We found 60 comorbidities to endometriosis. There is a paper that was published a few months after we published our white paper, correlating ovarian cancer with a specific subtype of endometriosis. We found a 4 times association between ovarian cancer and endometriosis, and ovarian cancer was not the only disease that was so highly correlated. Diagnosing patients early allows you to manage your disease early enough. You could switch your therapeutic regimen. For instance, you could use progesterone-based hormonal therapy versus the estrogen-based hormonal therapy, which the disease is actually, it feeds on estrogen, so it grows much more. Together with that, by diagnosing endometriosis so early, you could also start a series of screenings and checkups, a routine screening and checkups for all the other diseases that may arise at some point in your life. You definitely don't want to have a specific type of cancer. So we're not talking about some inflammation. We're not talking about, we don't want to even worry all these patients, but there is a risk and they need to know. And you need to be able to get access to the screening programs. So instead of just, saying, well, this year I don't feel like going for my pap test, consider that you have maybe a higher risk, you would go and take advantage of your screening.
Also, if we're able to diagnose more patients, that means we're collecting more data, and that will enable more therapeutics to come.
Correct.
Because a lot of women's health diseases are managed very poorly. Some have good options, progress really well, but some still, like endometriosis, still quite painful for a lot of patients. So I think diagnostics, can't be underestimated for sure. But taking it from a little bit from science and bringing it to the VC world here, diagnostics haven't always been seen by VCs as attractive as some other topics. What was the turning point in your conversations with investors that you felt that the narrative starting to shift and you getting more attention?
So a short version of the answer for this question would be when investors started seeing some companies successfully reaching the public market, like Natera, for instance. These companies brought a portfolio of products on the market, and they're doing pretty well. They have a very good market caps, and their return for those investors was decent. It was actually higher than what the investors thought. But that was a strategic move from this company, right? So bringing already multiple products on the market and then going public. We just added a second product on our pipeline. We are completing the paperwork basically to then announce it, but I can tell you already that we have acquired a point-of-care device for cervical cancer diagnosis.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're very, very happy about this. So much potential in this device. It's a portable device, and it's been designed for rural areas of the world and generally for low middle income countries where the pap smear is not as accurate as in other countries. It reaches sometimes accuracies around 50% due to the cold chain issues or the lab that are not very specialized, the temperatures sometimes. And in those areas, there is always a follow-up rate. There is a drop in the follow-up rate. So patients do not come back for a follow-up. Sometimes they don't even come back to get the results. And we're talking about numbers that reach 80%. So we decided to acquire this device that is going to be on the market in Mexico at the end of the year. And it's been designed exactly to stop this issue and to provide an answer to the patient immediately not asking her to come back for the screening and to get treatment immediately if she wants.
So this is later stage than your endometriosis?
Correct. It's in a later stage. We are currently in the clinical phase. And we will be submitting then the paperwork for the Mexican FDA authority later on this year. And then the plan will be to bring it to other markets around the world, eventually to bring it to the US and to Europe as well. That is just to add on the fact that we understand that to bring value as a women's health company, to bring value in the diagnostic field, we need to come with more products. We need to come with a pipeline of products and probably with a bigger platform that brings all those products under one umbrella. I must say, we have 25% of our investors are actually technical investors, as we like to call them. They have PhD, they are MDs, so they do understand the nuances, the technical nuances and the science behind both the endometriosis and the cervical cancer products. I think it is sometimes it's a bit difficult to investors that are not that technical to grasp the nuance around science and the benefit that actually a diagnostic can bring, even without a therapeutics.
How do you approach those investors that are not technical?
Well, like we approach all the investors, which means we show the numbers, we show the idea, the vision that we have for the product. The endometriosis product is designed to be simple. It's designed to not stop at one laboratory. It's designed to reach as many women as possible and to be as cheap as possible. So even when we look at our distributors, when we look at our suppliers, we try to find the best deal so that without compromising quality, obviously, we can keep our costs low. We show the revenue potential, obviously, and what it is our...
Yeah, because I was going to ask whether they misunderstand the economics of diagnostics. Do you get that as well, especially in a very, underdiagnosed disease like endometriosis? Although the patient numbers are big, still, it's not seen as diabetes. So
it's not seen as diabetes because it's not diabetes.
Yeah.
I don't think that investors that have been dealing with diagnostics do understand perfectly what we're talking about. They know also how long it takes and what are the costs attached to getting a product on the market. They know the regulatory process. They know everything. And they know exactly that diagnostic products, they have a tendency to not work on the whole population sometimes. That's the beauty of science, right? That sometimes you need to really go and have large screenings and then segment your populations so that you can find the best panel that works for different populations. For us, with our product, we looked at patients as they come without inflammations, and we looked at the tissue of origin of the disease. So we went and looked at inside the uterus. We took a little biopsy of the endometrial tissue, which is the lining of the uterus that gets shed every month with menstruation. And we looked at the differences there. This is the tissue that originates the disease. The disease then spreads outside of the uterus, and we don't know how, we don't know why, we don't know when it happens, and we don't understand the correlation between the size and the location with the pain or other symptoms that the patient feels. But we went there, and we went looking at patients that were not under any hormonal influence. So they didn't have birth control, they were not taking any contraceptives at that time, they were not under any hormonal therapy, GnRH, agonists, antagonists, nothing. Basically only painkillers, and not all of them. So they had a very healthy uterus, yet the difference between patients with endometriosis and without endometriosis, they were all first diagnosed with laparoscopy. The differences were right there in that tissue. These kind of nuances are better maybe grasped by investors, but in general by people that understand that a woman has a cycle, has 3 hormones going up and down during 28 days, and 2 of them cause massive changes in everything. So we cannot exclude that. We cannot silence it. We took it as it was coming. We consider also the patients that were irregular with their cycle, and we started analyzing and we started checking, okay, what is the influence of the menstrual cycle in this gene signature that we're looking at? What are the differences then between patients that have the same symptoms, yet some of them have the disease, visual disease, and others do not? And It was a very interesting study to perform. We did it with 60 patients on one side and another 60 on another side, so with two different studies, independent cohorts. And then we validated on another cohort of 200 patients. And we kept simplifying our test to make sure that those differences could also be picked up down the line with simpler and simpler methodologies.
And these kind of studies do attract investors, in your opinion, or is it, sort of supports your thesis behind Hera?
Both. So I think investors are very curious about it. They really want to see something that works for most women and that works besides the type of treatment that they are receiving. And we're going to get there. It's...
Well, I hope so.
We're going to get there. Most investors are interested in the disease. They're interested in the patient journey. They're interested in a product that works on those patients. And they want to finance and support something that has a great potential. So I don't think the investors' lack of interest in the field. However, I think that the field is getting a little bit polluted. There is a lot of talk, there is a lot of hype around endometriosis, around women's health. As I said before, there are buzzwords for women's health. There are some people that say, like, if I hear another empowerment talk, I'm gonna just storm out the room. I get that, but that's how we actually change something that has not been looked at before.
From investors' perspective, it can look fluffy.
Yeah, and I think I'm afraid that sometimes it looks a little bit too fluffy. So we come with, like, the first maybe year or two, writing a grant saying endometriosis diagnostic was very unique and very interesting for a lot of people, investors or governmental agencies, for instance. Now it's becoming a little bit more like, oh my God, here is another one. There is another company that is bringing yet another diagnostic tool. Again, non-invasive, or God knows if it's invasive or not. And it's again for the same disease. Now, in 5 years, my competitor landscape sheet is 60.
Wow.
I counted between academic projects and established companies and whatsoever. I have around 60 competitors out there.
Yeah, it is getting confusing, yeah.
Myself, I wouldn't know on whom to bet. If it was another disease, if I wasn't in the field, I would have difficulties myself to really understand, okay, what's going on? And everybody's looking at different things, different tissues. How can it be?
So your answers kind of led me to my question that I was going to ask later on, but I can bring it forward. If you had a lot of money, let's say, I don't want to limit it, to deploy across women's health diagnostics tomorrow, where would you place your bets and why?
I think we still need a consolidation in the field. I think we need to start collaborating more with each other. So if I had I don't know, a few million,
$50 million,
let's say $50 million, I would try to put them somewhere where to create some sort of platform where more technologies are together for the same scope or similar scopes. This is a bit what also Hera is trying to do. We want to create a platform that serves patients throughout their whole diagnostic journey. So you start a symptom, so you have certain symptoms and you don't know what it is, so you need to start doing some diagnostics. It could be endometriosis, it could be cervical cancer in our case at the moment, but it could be some other thing. And I think that those companies that would actually manage, hopefully will be Hera, the first, but I think that those companies that will manage to bring under one umbrella multiple technologies that serve the patient better upon symptoms, I think I would place my bet there.
Great answer. Because when I look at it as an investor as well, I see a lot of companies, but it almost feels like a thin spread and a lot of data, bits and pieces everywhere. It'll be really good to sort of have a data consistency. Where is this data heading with women's health? Because a lot of companies are collecting a lot of women's health data, yet how much of it is actually being translated is a question mark. So very good answer.
We're trying to fill gaps here and there, forgetting that the system is not perfect. So if you feel a gap in a system that it's not perfect, how is that going to work? I think there are pieces of our healthcare system in general and our clinical approaches to diagnose patients and to treat them, to manage the disease. They just need to be actually replaced. The new technologies that are coming in, the new companies, the startups, apps, digital health, everything, they should integrate it with what is there and think about changing some of the things that are not working, make them better. Not trying to fill the gaps that are in between, because that's just, I'm not sure how many apps my phone can still take and how much I should input every day in all of my apps. At
Wearable devices, everything.
Exactly. So at some point we need to have more passive collection, and that requires that reimagining it a little bit, how that process could be disrupted and could be reinvented, needs to be replaced for some of these things. We're trying to do that. Our aim, our vision would be at some point to have a full platform that collects data from the patients that get diagnosed through our endometriosis or cervical cancer product, for instance. So we have a data bank, a biobank that comes also from those products, all of them coming together and being analyzed by our AI-based software to generate insights. At this point, if it's fully integrated in the healthcare system, meaning that the patient receives the results so that they barely have to see Hera at any point. The doctor receives information and insights without having to talk to us. If everything fits together, it is thought in the way that it has to fit together, has to integrate with each other, then patients would have a huge benefit at the end of it. The insights that we can generate from the data that we collect is incredible. It's at some point something that we want to repurpose also for drug discovery.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into that whole AI route right now. It'll take probably an hour for us to.
Sure.
But yeah, very good approach. But I also want to get some tips from you, because I feel like it'll be really nice for other founders to understand and see, plus other companies. From your background, I can say that you had to sort of balance the scientific credibility with commercial storytelling, which is quite difficult, I have to say, someone who's coming from science background as well. What advice would you give to other founders trying to bridge that gap in your field?
It is doing what I'm doing now, trying to break it down and keep it simple.
Quite well.
Sometimes, scientists are not educated to keep it simple, nor to communicate it well in the way that everybody can understand. I always tried, even for my PhD thesis, I invited my family and I gave them a redacted version of basically of my PhD thesis so that they could understand. But it's really trying to keep it simple. Trying to simplify your vision in a way that anybody can understand it. And that requires some work. It's not that trivial.
It requires skills as well, entrepreneurial skills, something else.
Understand the obvious questions that would come to you. What's your market? How are you going to place it? How are you going to make money out of the product that you're trying to make? How is the product going to be simple enough that people want to have it? Those are questions that you need to learn, you need to answer. You will have to answer them, and the sooner you think about it, the better it is. But for the scientific perspective, for instance, some people have broad visions. Myself with a platform, I have a broad vision about that. It has to be kept very simple.
Absolutely, yeah.
Simplicity is the key to.
Yeah, and you might be an amazing founder, scientist, but if you can't tell your story,
it's going to be difficult.
Yes. Finally, I have one more question. So what's one truth about building in women's health you wish more investors really understood? What would you like to tell us?
I would like to say that there is a big opportunity for investors in women's health, in endometriosis, and in diagnostics as well. There is a future potential for diagnostics in fields that are so unexplored and still understudied, because there is everything to be discovered. There is everything to be invented and everything to be brought on the market, to be tried out. There is also another thing that maybe I would like to say, that is, don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes it's easy to get distracted by the hype and by the concept of wanting to have a specific thing, because you have imagined that would work better, that would be easier, whatever it is, the concept that somebody has. The other thing I would like to say is feel free to ask certain critical questions to founders and to developers. Sometimes investors or clinicians, they have already an idea of how they would want to see the final product, how it should work, on how many people it should work, for instance, and what the market cap should be, and all these things. We need that feedback, but we need you to have also an open mind. The feedback is necessary for us to think more critically about the product that we are developing. If there is room for improvement, yes, we will take that. I mean, at least founders should take it. But at the same time, keep an open mind, because sometimes it's necessary to go deeper or to be less comfortable in order to figure out what's happening within a disease, how we can support the patient better. And then we can start generalizing. Once we know more about the disease, we can start generalizing more and more. Since I come from the field of oncology, we did not start studying oncology from blood drawn, right? We started from analyzing the tissue, we started invasively, right? And now we are at the stage that we can detect cancer years before it starts becoming very, very dangerous, and we can detect it from the blood. And this is a progress, it's an incredible progress that has been done in the field, and it can only get better from here. We need to give a similar chance to other diseases that haven't been studied so well as well.
Thank you so much. That was such a good wrap. And honestly, thank you so much for being with us here. I really appreciate your time, your honesty, your clarity.
Thanks a lot to you and to NG Bio for organizing this.
To our listeners, if this conversation lit a fire, you're in the right place, and xxplore is just getting started. We got more founders, researchers, and investors coming your way. I'm Dr. Deniz Bakkalcı, and this is xxplore.